Greetings. I'm Dr. Kevin Seaman. I'm here to introduce our new take-home Narcan program. Later in this video, we'll explore more deeply the personal accounts of our EMS providers that respond to this crisis every day. We'll also hear very deeply personally touching stories from patients who have battled and successfully overcome this addiction to lead happier, more fulfilling lives due to their opioid-free recovery. In our nation, the CDC, our public health arm, has reported a 51% increase in opioid-related deaths over the past 2 years. Did you know we're in the midst of a crisis? Governor Hogan has declared a state of emergency and has committed $22 million for us to collaborate with partners to decrease deaths and to improve opioid-free recovery for patients. This is the Leave Behind Narcan kit. And the most important part of the kit is the nasal Narcan spray, which can save a life. In addition, in the kit are these resources that can provide the first step on a road to recovery. This kit is important. It contains an antidote that can immediately save a life. That's most powerful, though, when coupled with resources that help patients access opioid-free recovery. Now let's hear from providers on the challenges they face each and every day.
Hi, I'm Jeff Duer. Today we have with us Paramedic Mike Mills from the Department of Emergency Services with Charles County, with the Walter Volunteer Fire Department's EMS Division, Station 3, Victoria Larson. Today we're going to talk about the effects of opioid and Narcan in the streets. Paramedic Mills, what do you see happening out there?
A lot of overdoses. There's a lot of opioids. There's a lot of opioid issues in Charles County, in certain parts of the county. It's been going on for a while now. It's nothing new. I don't think it's new to anybody to be dealing with this. It's just the amount of attention it's getting now, and that how it's been recognized as an epidemic. There's a lot of money getting pushed towards it now. And there's a lot of people who are really trying to help and make a difference, and they want to see people stop using and get into recovery and be better taken care of. And I think everybody wants to see this crisis over with soon.
I agree with that one. Ms. Larson.
I think exactly like Paramedic Mills said, it's an issue that's been ongoing as long as I've been a provider in the county, but I see it more, getting the more attention now. People are taking more steps, bringing attention to the amount of overdoses that we see. At this point, we're seeing overdoses on a nearly daily basis out in the county. And people, like you said, are tired of it. They want to see it dealt with. They want to see recovery for those who are suffering from addiction. They want to see an end to this crisis.
I agree with that. So I guess for the next question, I'm going to direct this to you, Mike. Narcan, we know what it is. Can we explain more in depth as to what that does?
What Narcan does is it acts on the same receptors that opioids do, and it blocks out those opiates. So when you take an opiate, it binds to a receptor and you get that high feeling. What Narcan does is it binds better to those same receptors and it blocks out that opioid. The biggest thing with the opioids is how it depresses your respiratory drive, and that's how you stop breathing and ultimately die from an opioid overdose. So the reason Narcan is used is because it gets to those receptors faster and you instantly start breathing again.
Okay. How long does Narcan last for?
It's hard to tell sometimes based on what opioids are in the person's system and how often they use opioids. It varies person to person, and again, it depends on what they're using and how much they're using and how much Narcan they're given as well.
Okay. All right. Do you see issues with the repeated use of Narcan?
I definitely see that some of the same patients who have overdosed, I see multiple times, and they require Narcan to be administered again for that next overdose. And it's an unfortunate situation where someone that you've given Narcan in the past, you see again, and you know that it's likely the same scenario, that there's been an overdose on some sort of opiate substance, and they're requiring that service again. So I have seen that.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to ask you this too, Paramedic Mills. What are some of the dangers that can be associated with an individual receiving multiple doses of Narcan?
One of the things that can occur is that their breathing doesn't respond well to the Narcan based on the opiates. Another thing, there are some side effects with Narcan that can be seen in a very rare patient population, but again, you could get fluid in your lungs and stuff like that could happen as a side effect of Narcan. It is very rare. I've never actually seen it, and I've seen some large amounts of Narcan given to people before they woke up. So very rare instances. For the most part, the side effects are very minimal from Narcan. And ultimately, if you're not breathing secondary to an opioid overdose, the result's going to be death. So, Narcan and its limited side effects is still better than dying.
Yeah, I'll agree with that one. You want to add it? You want to think?
Oh, no, I absolutely agree. There are those very minimal risks of those rare side effects, but I think compared to the alternative, I think most individuals would be willing to accept those very small risks.
Okay.
For the benefit that Narcan has.
So we're giving multiple doses to these patients, and we're seeing multiple patients, sometimes the same ones, over and over again. Do you think there's a sort of cynicism between the first responders? I'm grouping all the fire, police, and EMS in the same thing. So I'll start with you.
I think that there can definitely be some frustration within the first responder community, especially when we're seeing repeat patients. It's just frustrating. Sometimes I see that providers can be frustrated when they've seen someone overdose in the past and they give them these resources. They provide the life-saving dose of Narcan that they need, and then maybe 3 days later, a week later, a month later, they're back at square one again. So it can be, I think, frustrating for some providers seeing that repetitive scenario. So I definitely have seen that frustration play out. What do you think?
What's your take on that, Mike?
I would say that most people don't have cynicism towards an individual, but rather they are cynical towards the situation, i.e. the opioid crisis in general, and having to repeatedly do the same thing. It doesn't matter the person. What matters is the fact that over and over again you keep seeing opioid overdoses and keep having to give Narcan to not only the same person, but just a diverse group of people. The opioid crisis affects everybody from all ages, all backgrounds. It doesn't matter. So I think a lot of times when people may appear cynical, first responders especially, they're more so aggravated at the situation in general than I would say any one person.
Okay, I can see that. Any comment on that?
I definitely agree. I think that as first responders, we see a lot of different scenarios in our line of work, but seeing the same dispatch over and over again, overdose here, overdose there, whoever it might be, it can be challenging to go into that with a frame of mind of you're making a huge difference when you see the same thing over again. So I think that's where maybe the cynicism can come from. Just it might feel like we're not doing anything because we're seeing it keep happening.
Okay.
Regardless of what happens on that particular call.
So what do you think we could do as providers to change this attitude?
Well, I think first is understanding that there's an underlying problem. It's an addiction that people are dealing with, and it's not something that's easy to overcome. And it takes more than just a dose of Narcan from a first responder to fix the problem, that there are many steps beyond that. And so I think understanding that there's a process, that we might not fix the situation for any one individual with one dose of Narcan, that there's much more that needs to happen.
So Narcan is really just a temporary solution to a long-term problem?
It's a first step.
First step.
First step.
What do you think?
Ultimately, I come back to the same rule I've tried to live throughout my entire career is treat everybody the same way you'd want to be treated or you'd want your mother treated. And that's, basically what every provider has to bring to this situation is ultimately they are human beings, whether they've made a mistake or not, or, whatever the reason behind their opioid addiction, they're still a human being. They still deserve our compassion. They're still reaching out for help from us. And that's what ultimately we're there to do. If you can't deliver that care to that person, then you probably shouldn't be doing this anymore.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're all in this line of work because we wanted to help people to make a difference somehow. None of us came into being first responders because we want to see people hurt or not make it through whatever medical situation they're going through. So I think remembering why we're here to help people. We're here to provide them, whether it's a life-saving intervention or the resources to get help beyond our time there. That's why we got into this field of work that we're in.
And how long have you been doing this?
I've been doing this about 4 years.
And you have hospital background too?
Yes.
All right, Mike?
22. All ambulance.
Nice. Okay. Sometimes, not all the time, thankfully, we Narcan a patient to bring them back and they come more conscious now. They're really abrasive, abusive almost. Why is that?
There's a bunch of reasons why. First of all, the whole shock to their system of a couple of seconds ago, they weren't breathing at all. Their brain was actually dying from lack of oxygen. So now they're breathing again. They don't know where they are. They don't know what just happened. They might not even remember using an opioid at all. They just know there's a bunch of strangers around them, probably, some police officers as well, and they don't know what happened. Now, some of these people are going to be mean or rude to us no matter what the situation is. And again, some people, it's just that chemical reaction of coming back to life and, not knowing where you are, not knowing what's going on, just being scared. It's a natural flight or fight response that people have no matter what. And getting Narcan is no different than anything else.
What you taking now? What'd you do with somebody like that? I'm sure you have. I know you have.
I have. My first response is usually to leave some space, just for the safety of myself and others. But bringing awareness, walking them through what's going on, where they are, who we are, because it can be jarring to wake up with a room full of people you've never seen before. You don't really know what's happening, how you got there. So walking them through, this is what happened. You stopped breathing. We gave you this medication. You're now breathing again. This is where you are. This is who we are. To kind of calm down that situation, to walk them down a little bit, is usually where I start.
Okay. Does Narcan work? So for both of y'all, does Narcan work in anything but opiates?
No.
All right. I want to clarify. There's a rumor out there that works on everything, but it's not a miracle drug.
No.
So, all right. We have a program that started here in the county July 1st, 2018. Sorry about that. It's called Leave Behind Narcan. It's funded by the Maryland State Department of Health through Governor Hogan's office. Can you tell us a little bit about what that does?
What we're supposed to do with the Leave Behind Narcan program is anytime we run a suspected opioid overdose, after they're revived, we should offer and or just give to them this kit the county has developed that is Narcan and some other information inside of it. That way, in case an overdose should happen again with this person, there would possibly be a friend or a loved one or really anybody who can give them this Narcan again to revive them again.
Are you familiar with this package?
I have heard of it. I have not seen it personally on the volunteer side of EMS services, but we are aware that they have been created and will be going out into the community in the coming time.
Okay, so I'm understanding this is 4 milligrams of Narcan that's going to be administered intranasally through the same way we do with other ones. So you won't require an individual starting an IV or doing a sub-Q with a subcutaneous in the arm like that, so it can be administered through the nostrils. So,
Correct.
All right. So as providers, EMS providers, we deal with a lot of people lots of different ways and times, whether it be overdose or medical emergencies. But with the overdose part, do you hear of any type of survival stories to where this episode made the difference to where they changed or turned their life around?
Rarely do you hear about success stories. I mean, obviously the failures, but it's rare that somebody would come back and say to me, hey, you guys helped turn my life around, or, you guys being there the first or fourth or fifth time that I needed Narcan and not giving up on me, I was able to turn my life around. We don't get to hear those stories. It doesn't make our way back to us.
Do you agree with that?
I do. I think there's a certain amount of anonymity in this profession where we're just there for that immediate emergency, and then we kind of disappear, go back to whatever emergency comes next. But we don't often get follow-up. We don't hear too much about what happens after we leave. That's just information that we're not usually privileged to.
So let me roll back a little bit to the cynicism we talked about earlier with the providers to the patient. Do you think that maybe some of the jadedness going on here was because you mentioned 5 times? I know people who have had Narcan administered numerous times, and some who have had just maybe a couple. But as providers see these individuals,
There are, without a doubt, there are cynical providers out there. There are people who have bad attitudes to opiate users, and they don't respond well to these types of situations in general. And I mean, those are providers that need to find a good way to deal with this situation, whether it's talking to coworkers or peer counselors or, anything available from the mental health side of the aspect. Because, I mean, ultimately, they do need to make a difference in this crisis. We all need to do our part. And, if somebody doesn't want to, who's supposed to, it's not going to help anything. Absolutely.
I think that because we don't often hear about these success stories, at least not from patients that we might directly work with, it's important to remember that you never know where that success story is going to come from, which patient will turn their lives around after that 5th or 8th or 10th dose of Narcan. So it's important to remember that any one call could be changing someone's life directly. That could be the one step that they need to realize, you know what, I need to make a change here. And it might just be that one provider giving that dose of Narcan that they needed.
You just said it there. That any one call can make the difference with this person changing around and taking a second opportunity in life. Mm-hmm. Okay. You good with that?
I totally agree.
All right. I want to thank you two both for coming out here today, spending your time with us, sharing your knowledge and your experience with overdose patients. I really do appreciate it. Thank you again. Stay with us. We're going to come back with 2 success stories of those recovering from addiction.
The road to recovery is a long and difficult path. Now let's hear from 2 of our patients who were this close to death, but now are able to share their success battling addiction with others on their road to recovery.
Welcome back. We're here with Sean and Dana. So we're going to start with you, Sean. Tell us your story.
I was young, moved to Salisbury with my brother, and when I came back for the summer, all my friends were, started using opiates, and I just eventually followed suit and just started using too. Things progress as they do. It got so expensive, my habit was that it was more cost effective for me to just switch to heroin. So I started using heroin and then go from snorting it to using IVs and more and more and more. And that's when I overdosed the first time. I had no clue what was going on. They brought me back and they were just like, yeah, you were dead. And then they were gone. And I was like, oh man. So I decided that I was gonna stop on my own. Everybody was telling me to go to rehab, but I was like, no, I don't need that. I was like, I'm just gonna do it on my own. And I did fine for a while. And then I was out with a friend of mine and ran into a guy that I used to buy drugs from. And he asked me for a ride, and he was like, I'll give you some stuff. I said, I'm not really doing that anymore. Can you just give me gas money and I'll give you a ride? He was like, sure. So we're in the car, and I was like, can I get that gas money? And he was like, I don't have any gas money, but I got this. And he put it in front of me. And my friend was like, don't do it. Don't do it. I was like, man, I can handle it. You know what I mean? I haven't done anything in a while. And I was like, it'll be fine. It's just a little bit. It was a little bit too. And I snorted it and dropped him off. And then I started, going out of it. And thank God my buddy was in the car. He was able to grab the wheel and pull over and got me out of the car and, called 911. He was doing CPR. The first officer that showed up was actually a girl that I, knew most of my life. And so they were both crying, doing CPR on me. And then, the ambulance showed up and they Narcaned me and nothing happened. So they did another one and nothing happened again. And they were like, look, he's too far gone. He's gone. And my buddy was just not accepting that. He was like, no, you're not done. You're not done yet. So they were like, all right, we'll do one more. And, he doesn't wake up, then he doesn't wake up. And that one more, I woke up. And, you know, they told me everything that just happened, and they wanted me to go to the hospital, but I didn't want to. My brother, who is he's an officer with the county, his sergeant had called him, and, you know, he rushed over, and he called my parents, and, you know, they pulled up too. And they looked at me, and they were just like, get in the car. I checked myself into a rehab the next week, and the rehab offered Vivitrol, which is a opioid blocker shot. And I was like, okay, you know, I'll try that. So I've been on it for 2 years now, and you know, couldn't get high if I wanted to. And it works for me, you know. Like, everybody's like, well, how much longer are you going to do that? I'm like, I'm not going to mess with a good thing. I'm not trying to rock the boat. You know what I mean? It works. You know, I have a very good job now. I'm seeing a girl. We have a place, 2 kids. I'm able to buy groceries. You know, I don't have to budget my money so I can go get high and not be sick. It's, you know, life is looking up. You know, I'm paying off debts and everything like that. I'm being an adult.
Well,
Yeah, being an adult. So I'm just looking forward to living the rest of my life. I don't want to die anymore.
Good, and we're going to come back to follow up on that too. So it's good, Dana. All right.
Well, I mean, I had a pretty normal childhood, but where my life took a turn is like I broke my back my senior year in a car accident, and I kind of just like opened the doors for me to be able to get into pain medications, because the doctors see my back on an MRI, and it's really easy to obtain a prescription. So, but it just was very recreational. Like, I was really good at just being a functioning and being able to do everything. And then I met my husband, and, you know, we fell in love. Like, everything was great. We were very social. Like, you know, we would go out, everything was controllable. We bought a house, got married. We had a dog, and we had a little boy. And somewhere along the lines, recreational became against our will. And didn't matter how hard we worked for everything we had, we were losing it all piece by piece. The only responsible thing I think I did when the addiction was so apparent was we agreed to sign over custody of our son to my parents. You know, we didn't have any grounds to fight, and I couldn't take care of him and take care of my addiction, take care of my husband's addiction. So by letting him go, I knew that, you know, he was going to be safe. He was going to go to school, he was going to get bathed, he was going to go to bed with a full belly, and that to me was more important. And then once we lost the house, started hopping from one hotel to the next. All in that time, like, I had overdosed at least 8 dozen times. And more than half of those, my husband had to call 911 to get me Narcan. But it didn't faze us. And we were losing friends around us, but we had this mindset that it couldn't happen to us. It wasn't gonna happen to us. It just wasn't. You know, it couldn't happen to us. And then, I'm sorry. So my husband had never overdosed. And then on June 11th, we were both overdosing from fentanyl patches. And when I woke up, I had not 1 but 2 shots to wake me up. And you know, all these other times that I've overdosed, my husband was right there, like standing over, like, and this time he wasn't. And I was like, where's my husband? And the EMTs very cold-heartedly said, he's dead. He didn't effing make it. That's how I was told my life was shattered. And I was still fighting for my life because my body was shutting down. I was put in ICU where I had to plan my husband's funeral. And I still had to tell a little boy that his daddy was never coming back. And like questions like from a 7-year-old that should never be asked was, could God restart his daddy's heart? How far away is heaven? And could he build a rocket ship to get there? But I said that I was going to stay clean till the funeral, then I was going to get help. You know, I needed to be there for my son, and went and asked the rehabs for help after the service, but because I couldn't fail a drug test, they wouldn't take me. So it's like what I hear is like, let's go get a handful of patches. Let's see who I make it to first. You guys are or my husband. So, but then it just led into an even deeper problem with benzos. I didn't want to feel that pain. So I spent all summer nodding out and then did it on vacation. And this was like the first time that I really let loose in front of my kid. Like he saw the damage of me just simply trying to take a shower and knocked myself out. The police were there. My parents wanted to go home. And the next day he gets on my chest and he's just like, "Are you okay, Mom?" And he's like asking me about life, not the marks on my face. And that's when I knew that something had to change. Like there just had to be some other life than what I'd been living for years. So I came home and I found a program that was just like a godsend to me, with people that were just like me and knew what it was like to be broken. And they all loved me unconditionally, even when I didn't love myself. And now I have 35 months clean from any and all drugs and alcohol. And that is an amazing feeling because I never thought that was possible. And I work really hard. I also waited until I had almost 2 years clean before I went and got custody of my son. But my son's been my sidekick. We've all, I lived with my parents, but then I needed to prove and do it the right way that I could be a mother because I didn't know who I was before. So I did it as a process. I didn't lose him overnight, just like I didn't become an addict overnight. I wasn't going to get it all back overnight. So it was about taking my time and doing it the right way. And, after 3 times of being in that courtroom, the judge was very happy to award me back full custody. And also being able to get straight A's in school while working 2 jobs was amazing. But probably the highlight of my year was I've never been able to rent an apartment or a house, but 33 years old, and I finally was able to get a house for me and my little boy with no co-signers, no roommates, and no man helping me. And it's just me and him. And that is a good feeling. Awesome. I'm a reliable person. I'm a good mother, a good friend, and a good daughter. And it's nice to know that my mom, we went from planning my funeral to now that woman can sleep at night peacefully. Because if it wasn't for their love and support, I wouldn't have been able to get that next chance that I really didn't even deserve. But I wake up grateful every single day.
I'm sure you feel better too.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes. So how did you two find support groups? How'd you locate these?
Well, I just got online and looked, for, meetings in the area, anything like that. My family, they've always been very supportive. At first when they realized that I had an addiction problem, they didn't really know how to deal with it. So they went to, classes and meetings themselves to figure out how to help, what to do, what not to say, and everything like that. My brother would go too. It was, they've always just anything that they can do to help. They've never been you're too far gone for us, you know.
That's important.
That is. That is. I mean, even times when I was giving up on myself, they weren't. So, you know, you got to have, you know, people there for you. And I mean, and for people that don't have, like, you know, a family life like I do, like I'm lucky enough to have, you know, there are people out there that are willing to, you know, go through it with you. You know, there are. You just gotta look. You know.
Same thing with you?
Yeah.
Internet?
Yeah, I
Through
mean,
Google?
and my mom, she also went to classes because, you know, I mean, my parents didn't really understand addiction or recovery. They were just trying to understand their daughter, and you know, and even though they still don't fully understand, like we have to have an understanding with each other. What they know now is who I am now, but they won't ever forget all that pain and damage that I caused for all those years. But the longer I stay consistent, the better the balance becomes.
So you can never go back, just keep going forward.
That's right.
Same thing.
Yes.
Right. So what would be your strongest point to keep you clean? Is there such an avenue you focus on, excuse me, every day? This is what's going to keep me driving forward.
I mean, I date a girl now. She's got 2 kids. I mean, they're like my own. I mean, her the father, he actually overdosed and died. So that happened when the 2-year-old, the youngest one, she was still pregnant with her, and so he never met his daughter or anything like that. You know, Skylar, he's 3. You know, he remembers a little bit about his father, but I'm pretty much the only male figure that these kids have. I look at them like they're my own. They definitely are a very big contributing factor to, you know, me wanting to stay clean. And the fact that I got just such a great relationship with my family now. Like, you know, I'm invited places, vacation, stuff like that. Like, you know, nobody wanted to go anywhere with me before. Like, nobody would call me and be like, hey, what are you doing tonight? You want to, like, you know, come over or anything like that? I mean, I always told myself when, you know, I wasn't getting invited places, I was like, I don't want to go anyway. But, I mean, it's so good to just, you know, have people to want you be around, you know. And then, you know, like I said, I got a great job right now, and, you know, money isn't really an issue for me anymore. I was struggling hard when I was using because all of my money was going to getting high. And, you know, I couldn't keep truck payments, like, you know what I mean, like a cell phone. I couldn't keep my cell phone on because, you know, I just had to use that money to go get high. I mean, I don't really worry about, like, things like that anymore. And, you know, that's definitely...
That's huge.
Yeah.
It has to be huge.
It's a nice peace of mind, you know, to have that.
Well,
I think we've identified at least one.
my clean date is like August 9th, 2015. And that date isn't just important to me, it's important to everybody around me. But one thing that I learned, like, I couldn't do it for my son because nobody could keep me clean before. I like knowing that I can go through this pain and God throws pain at me every, few months, some serious stuff that really hurts. But every time I keep my head up, I have the most beautiful growth. Like, you know, so I've learned that it's okay to not be okay all the time. And there's a lot of times where I am really sad and don't want to leave my house, but I just get up and I just, get that gratitude and I'm able to go about my day, because to me, it's about living in the solution and not the problem. And that little boy, and like he's 10 now, and I mean, we drive each other crazy, but I couldn't imagine like letting him down. He has my Clean Time app on his phone, and he pulls it up and he's just like, that's my mom.
That's awesome.
And, but I got to do it for me. And it is a good feeling to know how much work that I care enough to even do work on myself today when I didn't care before.
Sean, how many times have you been Narcan?
I've been Narcaned total of 2 times. The last time that I overdosed, they used 3 shots on me.
And that's the time that you were having CPR performed by your friend?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. The first time that I overdosed, like, you know, it was just one, and you know, I opened my eyes. You know, I had a woman right in my face. She was just like, "You were dead. Am I going to be okay?" Like, you know, I didn't know what to do. I'd never gone through it before. I'd actually never seen anybody overdose before. You know, I'd never even heard of Narcan. So I didn't know what was going on. And then, you know, the second time, you know, after they used that 3rd shot on me, you know, it was pretty much the same thing. They were like, you were gone for this long. And, you know, I mean, they weren't very nice. I'm grateful for them for being there and, you know, bringing me back. I definitely am. I just, I didn't know what the hell was going on or anything like that. And, you know, I mean, they got a job to do. Like, just don't yell at me.
Your turn. How many times were you Narcan?
Okay, so it's close to a dozen times, but the last time they had to give me 2 shots. And, yeah, I mean, the EMTs were like, you know, waking up out of that, I had no idea what was going on. And to be told that my effing husband was dead, you know, I don't care what I am or what kind of person I am. I don't think that's, you know, tell me that my whole life changed. So.
All right, you had told me that you had a previous encounter with or another encounter with EMS. Can we dwell into that a little bit?
Yes. So I had this girlfriend that I've been close with for a long time, but I've had to love her from a distance because she still struggles in active addiction. So I went by to go check on her, and she started overdosing within 2 minutes of me being there. So as I'm on the phone with 911, and I had another girlfriend with me, we were taking turns giving her CPR. And she was in like her bed because she just broke her hip because she was hit by a car. So she was in a fragile state as it was. And then when the EMTs got there, they're looking at me and they're saying, "What were y'all using?" I was like, I'm not high. I'm telling you, this is what I found in her purse. That's all I can tell you. They're like, "Well, if you don't effing tell us what y'all were doing, we can't help her." I had 1.5 years clean, but I was being accused, and that's all that their focus was on. And then they dragged her out of the bed, and I said, "Be careful, she's got a broken hip." And they said, "Well, maybe she should have thought about that before she effing overdosed." And that, you know, this girl, doesn't matter what kind of drugs she's on, like, she's a mother, and she's, you know, somebody I've loved dearly. Her son is very close to me, and it's just, I couldn't imagine, you know, had I not been there to call the EMTs, but like, that was just really callous and harsh that they were so focused on asking me, even though I was clearly coherent. They were just more worried about what drugs that I had.
If you could say anything to the EMS providers out there, what would you say?
Well, I am definitely very, very grateful that they were able to save my life. You know, and I'll always be grateful for that because, you know, my son got to keep his mom. However, how I was told my husband was dead, like, that is something I will never forget. I don't care what kind of state I was in. Like, I will hear that man saying those words to me, and to make me feel like a worthless junkie. You know, I had zero fight for it in the beginning. You know, I felt like I was nothing. But in actuality, like, you know, I am somebody's mother. I'm somebody's daughter. I'm somebody's sister. My life matters. even though I was sick in addiction, like my life still mattered, and it mattered to a lot of people, just like my husband's life did. He was somebody's daddy. He wasn't just some asshole junkie overdose. We loved our son. The compassion needs to be there. Because if you volunteer to be this person who helps people, you don't tear somebody down when they're already down. That's like kicking somebody when they're down. Why do that? Just have some compassion like it was somebody in your own family. Because I promise you, that's not how I thought my day was going to go. I didn't think about that I was inconveniencing somebody else. Active addiction is a scary place, but that doesn't make me any less of a person.
Your turn.
I would say, you know, like she said, you know, I'm very grateful to them. And I understand that, you know, addiction to somebody that has never known anybody going through it or been through it themselves, like, you know what I mean? It's foreign. And I get that. But, like, you know, if you're going to, you know, choose to be an EMT, you got to know that you're going to run into that. So maybe, I don't know, like, go to a meeting. Like, you know, see that these are people. You know, I mean, like, you wouldn't yell at a diabetic for, like, you know, going into shock or anything like that. I mean, like, I was scared. I didn't know what was going on. Like, you know, just try to understand. Try to understand. I'm not saying that you got to go hold their hand and walk them to, like, you know, rehab with them and everything like that. But I'm just, you know, I didn't want to die. Like, you know what I mean? I didn't want my heart to stop or anything like that, you know. So, you know, just try to be more soft, I guess. I don't know. Don't yell at me.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to thank Sean and Dana for coming out here today, spending your time with us and sharing your stories. I really sincerely hope it makes a difference for us out in the field. Dude, thank you two very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
It takes all of us to save a life. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something important from this video. I'm Dr. Seaman.
you.